Anything else about Twilight Eclipse?
Probably.
One thing I would say, the soundtrack was good, and I think I remember some of the songs. Like one of the songs was done by a rapper, Lupe Fiasco.
Oh yeah, I remember Lupe Fiasco.
So the Midnight, and I think they used that song in like the training montage.
Right. Okay.
And I think one key thing from Eclipse that I did really take away from it was that it was good to actually give the other vampires more of like a prominent role. Mm-hmm. So you did see from like, if I'm remembering, James, Alice's husband. Jasper, you're actually able to see more of his character come through.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I guess the Confederacy thing.
Yeah, and you get to like him a little bit more because in Twilight he's a bit like
he's
like wide-eyed, and New Moon obviously he tries to attack her.
Yeah. I love his quote in this as well. Like when they're like voting on whether Bella should be turned, she's like, it should be democratic, and then like Rosalie's like obviously like no, and you kind of understand why. Then Jasper's like yes, and everyone's like yeah. He's like, I can't wait not to feel the wish to kill you all the time. And I was like, that's a cool line.
Yeah, it's so good.
And also you learn that
creepy as well.
When he was turned, it was against his will.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, because he was part of a newborn army, and it was like this female vampire who was creating this army, like similar to Victoria.
And
manipulating him.
Yeah. And then you also find out later, which is in like the Breaking Dawn films, that I believe wasn't she also turning children as well into vampires, and then that was like a rule that the Venatori said cannot happen.
Children, really?
Because the issue is with children, like if you've watched like an interview with a vampire, which is I think the one with Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, and
I think I watched that ages
ago. Who was in Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. Kirsten Dunst, is that she gets turned as a child, but because she's a child, she doesn't know her strength. She's always hungry. So they saw that there is an issue with the child being a vampire because they don't have temper tantrums, and if they do, they're fully strong and powerful.
So they like ruin a whole village. And
and that's what they said in the books and in the films.
Yeah.
So the Venatori said anyone who sets up that type of thing, everyone within that clan or group will be executed.
Yeah.
So
and like vampires feel so much as well, and they would just feel so attached to these children. I mean, obviously, as you would probably, as a human anyway, but families would become so attached to these children as well, and like really defend these vampire children with their lives. So basically, like covens were just wiped out,
right? I see.
And killed by the Volturi.
I guess that makes sense, and I guess you never see super old vampires either. Is that another rule, or just no one wants to feed on old blood?
Well, they don't age.
I
was thinking about that yesterday.
Yeah, because like
maybe
you would then become like stuck being old for like end of time. Like,
but I think when you become a vampire, like any ailments are fixed. So like you know, when Bella becomes a vampire, she was broken and mangled from her childbirth, but the venom just fixes everything.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so I think probably if you were old, you'd probably just look young again. I think it's like, in here, like wrinkles. I think tattoos as well are like taken away.
But so much I spent on that. I guess you could just keep getting tattooed, but I guess it would peel really quickly as well.
But the issue is, because their skin is like diamond, the tattoo artists are like, what the?
It wouldn't even go in. But it is a bit weird as well, and very problematic, because when you become a vampire, you lose pigment in your skin as well, hence why they're so pale. So like in this book, she's like, like if you're black, you know, you become olive toned skinned. And it's like, why are we whitewashing? Like, do you know what I mean? It is
a bit unkosher.
It didn't have to be that way.
I guess so. I mean, I need to read. I feel like I would like to read these books because, you know,
But I think one point that I think I was reading just like extra information on this, that based on some like cultures and believing in vampires, is that they were really pale. So I think maybe she got that from there. But But then I think just like going from like black to olive is a bit too far. But then you do see like with depictions of like Count Dracula, he is very pale.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then she backtracked on so many other myths. It's like, why did you have to keep that one?
It certainly wouldn't age well, that one. And she was writing in like 2005. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are other, problematic things with it as well. With the Quillette tribe that Jacob's part of. I think it's a real tribe.
Oh, really?
In America.
Oh, damn.
The name of it is a real tribe. Yeah. And I think essentially she just didn't do any research into it and just kind of made up her own like culture and rules associated with the tribe. So that in itself is a little bit, if you're going to be using a real tribe, like I think it's probably best that you do the research and at least,
Well, one little nugget of trivia is that all the actors that were playing, the Quillette tribe in the Twilight movies had the casting crew made sure that they all had like actual documentation showing that they were Native American ancestry, but they weren't of the Quillette tribe though, which is I suppose a little bit iffy, but I guess at least they did that. If they got a bunch of like white people to play them, that would have not gone down well at all. So that's one nice bit of trivia. Let's have a quick trivia break before we dive into the finale of Breaking Dawn Part 1 and Part 2. So some random trivia. Did you know, you probably know this, did you know that the Twilight books were originally going to be called Forks? Literally Forks, Forks. Yeah, exactly.
What comes to mind when you say forks? Just a bunch of forks.
Yeah.
You just think,
Forks, yeah. And in the TV show movie, the name of the high school is Forks High School. Mm. And that's the only sort of reference to it. That's it, Forks. So the publisher persuaded Stephanie to change it, which I think was a good move.
I think that was a good idea. Yeah. She chose Forks specifically because she wanted a town where they got loads of rain and they didn't get much sun. Because obviously vampires can't go in the sun, otherwise they sparkle. Which, by the way, I think everyone poo-poos on the sparkle thing. And it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah. But if you actually think about it, if someone was about to kill you and they started sparkling, you would, that's creepy. That's so weird.
Yeah, that would freak you out.
I think that's worse than, I don't know, burning.
I think it's just the way they portrayed it in the films. If you think about it, when you've got aliens invading or aliens take someone, it's like a huge light that blinds people.
Yeah.
So if it was more of I know that they've done it in some Dungeons and Dragons games where they have a crystal dragon where it's actually more dazzling, but you actually the crystal effect. You actually see aspects of crystal. Then that would probably be more scary than just as if the person's just dazzling with magical energy.
Fabulous, darling.
But yes, I think she just Googled a rainy town in America, and then Forks came up, and that was it.
She could have done it in London if she was looking for a miserable rainy place. Yeah. Although I guess vampires want to stay away from big cities.
Yeah, true.
Did you know that there is, I love saying, did you know? Did you know that there's Midnight Sun released in 2020, which is I think it's Twilight 1, written by Stephanie Meyer, but from Edward's perspective instead. I'd love to see what's going through his mind at the beginning, especially with that whole negging thing, which probably wasn't negging, but what did you think of it?
It was good. I can't remember it a lot, which probably means it didn't make a huge impact on me. But I remember it being his absence and his negging being more justified based on that. He goes away, obviously, he's away for a few weeks, and he's just battling with this internal battle of wanting to kill her, but also So I think
he's
I remember
I love his intensity. It's so funny. Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Did you know that there's also another book she's released, which is they they're gender swapping, so it's a male human and a female vampire. I can't remember the name of it, but that is out there as well. So
I've heard of it, but not read it. I don't remember what it's called. I only heard of it recently, actually.
No, fair. Well, if this inspires you I feel like after we talk about these shows or movies and stuff, I always end up like watching some clips when I go home later or something, just for the nostalgia.
That's so fun. Have you? Sorry, I was going to say, have you seen? There's like a compilation on YouTube of Robert Pattinson just like shitting on Twilight in all of his interviews. It's so funny. Like he'll just be like, yeah, you know, like Stephanie Meyer, she sort of dreamt of this hot vampire, and you just think, this woman's mad.
I would like to see that. It might remind me of Mark Hamill shitting on The Last Jedi. Yeah.
And also, which is very funny, I think Henry Cavill tried to get the role as Edward Cullen.
Really?
Because like he had like a long list of times he didn't get jobs, so that was one of them. And I think, if I can remember the other one that Henry Cavill didn't get, and I think potentially Charlie Cox, the person who plays Daredevil, also went for it as well.
Ah, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and
That's
I think
so funny.
and the fact that the film, both for him and also for like Kirsten Stewart, it was like kind of damaged their careers. But I think, but for Robert Pattinson, he did like a lot of like indie films. Like there was a film that I watched that he was in where he was like a billionaire who was in like a limo car. So he was like, you know what, I need to recapture my image. I'm going to do these thought-provoking indie films.
Yeah.
And then got himself back. And then he was in the Henry V film with Timothée Chalamet, which was on Netflix. And then was brought on from that success, was then brought in to play Batman.
Yeah, I mean, Edward Cullen and the Batman that Robert Pattinson plays, I don't see any difference, to be honest. But this is why I'm Team Edward, because I actually just love him as an actor. I think he's in so much, and he's really cool and good, and I'm kind of attracted to him in a weird way.
Yeah.
And just one thing I did read, there was also like an in-between book for the third book. Mm-hmm. So like she also read from a perspective of one of the vampires who was in like Victoria's group.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives you like an understanding of what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
So like she was then turned, because during the whole period of like the third book, you hear like stories in Phoenix of like people are disappearing, people are dying, there are fires, and then people, the general media think, is it a gang war? Is it just terrorism across the whole region? Mm-hmm. But then they kind of understand, the Cullens understand it's vampires. And I think they do send someone, it might be Jasper, to scout to see what's going on.
I think they do.
And then from that book, you get the viewpoint of this vampire that she's recently just been turned and she's now part of like Victoria's army. Yeah. And the cleverness of Victoria was that, because they're young vampires, they're more powerful than she is, to convince all of them to follow her direction, she turns the first one, so that's the guy in the film that's being chased around.
Yeah.
He's then put in charge, and he's basically the go-between. And then she tells him, tell all the vampires you then turn, that I turn and send to you, that vampires die if they go in sunlight.
Yeah.
So then they just rampage throughout Phoenix during the night, but then have to come back to that location because they believe that they would actually die. Mm-hmm. And then, so from her perspective, you then get to see that, okay, no, some of these are lies. People who are part of this group who have now disappeared and run away, they're told that, oh, they were just killed in sunlight, and potentially they just ran off and realized that all of it was lies.
Fake news.
She then like meets up with, and then kind of like befriends someone, and they get really close. And then he, who's really close to the leader of like Victoria's group, turns and tells him, I think this is all a lie. And he then kills him. And then you then realize she attends a meeting where some of the like scouts or the junior members of the Venatori meet up with Victoria and say that, okay, we know what you're doing. If you're going to kill the Cullens, then just make sure that like Alice and Edward are still alive.
Right, so this fills in. Okay. So,
and then you then see like they kind of incorporate that in the film. So like when she's about to die, Edward then reads her mind and then knows everything that's gone on. So he knows that the Venatori are actually trying to use Victoria to then destroy the Cullen family. So then he reads her mind just before she dies. That's why I think in the film they like lock eyes, and he looks at her and she looks at him.
Yeah.
And then he reads her mind, and then they kill her.
Yeah. Oh, fair. So it's not just a conspiracy theory; it's actually confirmed by Edward. But no one's going to believe him anyway. That's
What's her name? The girl that
I've completely forgotten her name.
She's at the end. I don't know if you remember. They try and save her.
And they kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was dark. I mean, also it's like when she was first born as a vampire, and she's like, and then that guy comes over and is like, "It's okay, we'll find you someone to drink." And I was like, "Oh, this is pretty." Yeah. It doesn't have to show violence, but sometimes, like, you know, disturbing stuff like that can be just as effective.
I love it when they all come out of the water.
Yeah, that was pretty gangster. Yeah. Oh, we need to talk about Emmett as well. Emmett, you know, one of the members of the Cullen crew, the frat boy.
There's so much to unpack.
I really wish I had a picture for it, but there's a scene in Eclipse where the whole Cullen family's standing off, either towards the werewolves or this new vampire army, and Emmett looks so ridiculous in it. I don't know why it is. It's the way he's standing, or it's like his clothing and his style, but it was so funny. He just looked like a mannequin. It was so weird.
He is such a machine.
Yeah, he's
and
a
also
weapon.
he's really entertaining. Like, he's a little bit entertaining in the movies. I feel like the movies get kind of funnier as they go. Like, they throw in a few more jokes.
The daddy gets funnier for sure. Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, gets his footing.
Final bit of trivia, or 2 bits of trivia. The second one's quite short. So Michael Sheen, who plays Arrow, the head of the Volturi, also portrayed Lucien, the head of the Lycans, the werewolves, in the popular Underworld series of films. Do you remember Underworld?
Yes, yeah.
With Kate Beckinsale and stuff. So ironic, the head of the Volturi in Twilight is actually the head of the werewolves in another one.
Interesting.
Now that's cool, huh? Yeah.
Wow.
Fantastic trivia.
And funnily, the head of the vampires was played by Bill Nighy.
Oh yeah, I love Bill Nighy. Yeah, Bill Nighy's sick.
So fun.
And then final bit of trivia, Stephanie Meyer. Well, Meyer is a married name. She was actually born Stephanie Morgan. That's me. Cool trivia. Okay, going back to Twilight Breaking Dawn. So Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1 was released in 2011. The novel was released in 2008 and obviously was just one novel, as we confirmed earlier. It was $712 box office, which was the same as Eclipse, weirdly enough. But the budget was $127 million, so almost double. They went to town.
That was a big movie, like big movie. So that was just the first one.
Just the first part, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big budget. I know. I guess I mean, 200 million back then would have been like super box office, like Avatar. But that's a lot of money. Yeah. Oh, I need to watch it. I'll run through the critic stuff. Rotten Tomatoes, the critics gave it 25%, which is actually the lowest out of all of the movies. Audience score was 60%. What are your thoughts on Breaking Dawn Part 1?
I loved it. Yeah. It was one of my favourites until Part 2 came out. I think it gets funnier. I think it gets funner. I loved seeing everything realised, like the wedding, the way they do, like the wedding dress. It's a big reveal, so arty. Like the wedding is like so floral, like it's in the woods. It's just gorgeous. They have like wedding speeches from a lot of the characters, like Renee, like her mum, her dad, Jessica, who's played by, what's her name in Pitch Perfect?
Who's Jessica?
Oh yeah, what's her name again?
Oh, Anna Kendrick.
Anna Kendrick. Yes. And she's really funny.
I love that character in Twilight, actually. Like, after they go see the movie and Saga, it's like, oh my god, like, you're depressed, like, whatever. I'm like, oh, what about me? Like, the way, I think she's been, she's
and also,
great.
she despised her character. She was like, I think the main thing for her was like, it was tropes for like what teenage girls would be. And I think the annoying thing for some of the actors and actresses was that some of them were in there heading towards 30s, and it's like, now I need to play.
Yeah. Oh, she looks quite young, Anna Kendrick. I guess she's one of those people that just looks young forever.
She does look young.
Yeah.
But I just love it. And then they go on their honeymoon.
And where'd they go to for their honeymoon?
They go to a remote island.
Ooh, wow.
So first they
they're rich,
and so they're so rich. They've been
Yeah.
alive for a long time. They've built it all up.
Yeah.
So she doesn't know, it's a surprise. I think actually the island, maybe they don't say it in the films. I think it's called Isle Esme. I think it's Carlisle owns the island.
Oh,
yes, he does. Yeah.
Yeah, and Esme is his wife, so he's named it after her.
Cute.
Romantic. And yeah, so Bella doesn't know where they're going. They go to Rio. They have a little dance, and then they take like a private boat over to this little island, and they have this gorgeous honeymoon. And then they finally have sex, and it's what Bella's wanted for so long. It's what we all wanted.
My prediction is it's going to go really bad because he's like, no sex before marriage, and like, she doesn't know what she's signing on to. What if like their first time's bloody awful and he's like so bad? Or like, I don't want to go into too much detail. This is what I'm
it would have been his first.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess so, yeah. I suppose.
Well, you're wrong, because it was the best night of her life.
It lasted for 1 minute. Can I ask you a question? When does Bella reveal to her parents that Edward's a vampire and this whole vampire world thing? Does she do that in part 1?
No, they never.
Doesn't her dad like kind of know, because in part 2 they're thinking that they might not survive?
Yeah.
So I think her mum might not know, but she does tell her dad.
But they don't. Right. They never say explicitly that they're vampires, because then the Volturi would kill.
Right.
Basically. Okay. The idea is that when she becomes a vampire, she will just pretend she's dead to everyone. She knows. But it doesn't quite work out that way. But after she has sex, she's like, life doesn't get better than this. She loved it so much that she was like, I'll put off being a vampire for a while. I'll go to college. Yeah, because she's like, what if I turn into a vampire and sex isn't as good? Basically.
But then how the Volturi, like, aren't they like watching or anything? Like
What?
No, not watching her. I mean, like, if she's, because on the Volturi, like, you need to put a date in the calendar when you're going to be turned, and if she keeps delaying it.
I think so one thing that we forgot to mention in New Moon is that Alice shows the head of the Volturi that Bella will then become a vampire because she can show people the future. Not only can she, the head of their group can see a person's past and can also see things. I'm not sure if he can just see the past or the future, or can see things that have happened.
I think he can also read people's minds, but only if he touches them.
Yes.
So Alice sees the future, and then Alice is like, let me show you.
Yeah.
So then he touches her, and then he sees that she's going to be a vampire.
Yeah.
And Alice was like, because at the time Edward didn't want to. So Alice was like, I'll do it myself. She made the decision. Because I think that's how her future works, her future fortune telling works, is that it's based on decision. So if someone's indecisive, which is exactly what Victoria played on when she was doing the army, if people are indecisive and always changing their decisions, she won't know and she won't be able to see. So that's why Alice couldn't predict exactly what was going to happen with the newborn army. That's why she couldn't predict a lot of things.
Right, okay.
So she decided herself that she would change Bella regardless.
But does she actually do it? Is she the one that does it?
She's not the one that does it.
Is it Edward?
Yeah.
It is Edward.
Okay, I thought that might be the case.
Is
Jacob invited to the wedding?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. If I was in Jacob's place, I would probably turn it down. I mean, that's pretty traumatic.
He wasn't there for the main bit, but he comes at the end and has a little dance with Bella. And then that's when she says, we're going to have sex. And then he gets really annoyed.
Right, Jacob overhears. Also, one thing we forgot about in Eclipse is, when Bella's in the tent and like it's really cold, and Edward obviously is really cold to come.
She just
calls in Jacob, and like it's pretty hard having your heart broken because of a crush, but then being used as literally like a human body warmer. Yeah.
Oh my god,
that was actually really funny.
He's like, would be better if she was naked. He's like, you bastard.
Yeah, Jacob was pretty problematic in Eclipse.
Although Edward was very forgiving of Bella in Eclipse. I know we're jumping back, but
yeah,
she bloody kissed Jacob. If my boyfriend went and kissed someone who there was potential with, or like he was like in love with, but not as much in love with me,
which is
I'd be
bullshit.
Yeah, cut off, mate.
Yeah,
maybe he was kind of like blaming himself because like
I probably was. He's such a
yes, because in like New Moon, if he hadn't been like, you know what, end of relationship, now I'm going off somewhere else. They wouldn't have been able to develop that bond. So maybe he's thinking like, if I was there, this wouldn't be happening. So I have to let this happen.
He's kind of right, to be fair. he brought up on himself.
That's true. That's very self-aware of him, I think. I think the therapist in that podcast you're talking about probably he has good self-awareness.
Oh, sensitive king. So they have sex. She's all happy, but he wrecks the bed.
Lol.
And she does have bruises on her, although she's not hurt.
Okay.
So the next morning, she's like reliving it. She's like, wow, this is amazing. He comes in stone-faced. He's like, I'm so sorry.
Wait, he's got to wear a condom? Or can he actually even wear one?
No, they didn't think that...
They didn't
think that it was possible to conceive.
Yeah.
So he definitely didn't think he wore a condom. But he was concerned about the bruises.
Yeah,
He was like, I hurt you. I'm so sorry. Like, we'll never do that again. And she was like, no, please. So then for a good half an hour, she sort of is begging for it again.
Jesus Christ.
and then finally he gives in. It happens, and it's a bit more gentle. He's much happier with how it went. So then they do all of the honeymoon, and then suddenly she's cooking. He's gone out for like a hunt, and she's sick, and she's like, what's going on?
Yeah,
did I eat some bad chicken? And then she's like, what date is it? When was my period due? She's late. She calls Alice. She's like, is it possible? I think that I might be pregnant. Meanwhile, Edward gets back. He's like frozen in place. Carlisle's on the phone. Alice can't see Bella's future anymore. Bella's got a little baby bump already.
Is that the end of part 1?
No.
Oh, damn it. Plot thickens.
This is like the middle of part 1.
Oh my God. I need to see
So maybe I'm going into too much detail.
I mean, we could run over a bit. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to interrupt anything.
So Bella calls Rosalie, which is where their friendship and Rosalie's support comes in. Yeah. Edward wants it out. He's like calling it. You know, she's like, oh my God, like, you hate our baby. And she wants this baby. She thinks it's like a mini Edward. She wants to keep this baby. She doesn't care if she dies. She doesn't care if it endangers her. She wants the baby to be born. Mm-hmm. Which I'm sure a lot of mothers can probably relate to. But yeah, so she has this baby. It grows really quickly, ruins her, sucks like all of the life out of her. She's super thin. She's massive.
Oh my goodness.
The bump is massive. Like she can't keep anything down, but she tries blood, and she likes the blood. So the baby likes the blood. And then there's a whole traumatic scene of the birth where basically she goes to drink, drops the cup. It's actually so gruesome, this movie. Like, it's really kind of gross.
PG? What's the rating on that? But no, continue.
I'd be interested to know. Yeah, so she goes to bend down to grab the cup instinctively, and then her back breaks, and then she's sent into labour.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's awful.
And like, even to like add into that is like how everyone reacts to Bella being pregnant. So what happens to begin with, like Jake, when she then comes back to the town,
mm-hmm.
Jacob is like, you know what, I agree. And it's the first time like Edward and Jacob both agree. They're like, yeah, Bella, you have to get rid of the child because we prefer you to be alive than for you to die and have the child.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like the leader of the tribe, the pack of wolves, was like, Jacob, this is nothing to do with you. Kind of like mind your own business. Like, she chose this for herself. Let her suffer the consequences.
PG-13.
But then, like, when they get closer and closer to the date of the child being born, it's as if, like, the werewolves just tick in their head, like, wait a second. What is this thing that's going to be born? Like, it's like, is it a full vampire? Is it a half vampire? Is it a danger to humans? Is it going to be like a new abomination, which is a danger to humans? So now the wolves are, like, debating, should we go and kill Bella to prevent an abomination coming to the world, which could then affect themselves, the town, and also the rest of the world?
Does Jacob stand up for her? Or is he like going along with
it? He does.
He then switches sides. And then he's like, no, you're not going to kill Bella. I'm going to protect Bella and the child. And then
he then on the child. I know he does that. So then, so messed up.
So then himself, and I've forgotten what her name is. You know the person that I think the sheriff's partner, I think his daughter, who's a werewolf, Leah. And also Leah and her younger brother, they side with Jacob. So they literally protect them and stay guard for the whole period of time.
And as soon as they decide to leave the pack, because when they're wolves, they can read each other's minds, like they can't hide anything from each other. As soon as they will decide to leave, they're cut off from the pack. And then they're in their own pack and they can read each other's minds within their own little pack because they've decided
to leave. So then Jacob's then an alpha of this now.
I was waiting for Jacob to
and Jacob was always meant to be alpha. So this is so good in the movie. So what happens is what's his Sam, who's the alpha of the pack.
Yeah.
He was the first to turn, but Jacob was meant to be the alpha, but turned it down because his granddad was the alpha.
I remember him saying that in, I don't know, Full Moon. And he's like, I was meant to be alpha, but I turned it down. I thought that was him just talking crap.
No, it was true. And he uses it in this. So alphas can use this alpha voice that basically controls the other wolves so that they have to obey that order. And like they don't have a choice, basically. Sam doesn't often use it. No one often uses it because obviously it's a little bit
mind control.
But basically Jacob uses it because Sam's like, we're gonna go and kill Bella because this baby. And then Jacob like stands up and he's like, no, I am the grandson of Ephraim Black. And then he like towers over him and then Sam bows down to him. It's amazing.
That's pretty epic, actually. Amazing. And does he do that in werewolf form or human form?
In werewolf form.
Ah, okay. Do they ever talk in the movies in werewolf form?
Yeah, so they speak, like they have voiceovers. Right. But it's not like the wolves aren't like moving them out. It's like because they can connect minds,
Probably because they didn't want to pay for the extra CGI on that as well. Interesting. Okay, and is that the end of part 1, Breaking Dawn?
So the end of part 1, I think the end of part 1, we don't know. The baby is delivered safely.
Mm-hmm.
We don't necessarily know that Bella's alive. Jacob imprints on the baby, on the horrible CGI baby.
It's really bad.
It's terrible. Have you not seen it? My God.
Twilight.
It would be good if it was in some sort of game and everyone else was animated. You'd be like, that's a pretty good animated baby.
But they just animated the baby.
Because I think the issue was is that they had an adult actress they had for later on in the film. So like, you know what? Let's make this baby look like the adult actress. And then you're like, it's a baby. Babies change a lot when they grow. Like you could have had any baby.
Especially a newborn.
Yeah.
And you don't look at a newborn baby and know what they're going to look like when they're 20.
CGI baby. There's a lot of funny photos here. I can't tell which one's the real thing.
No, all of them are real. No, except for...
What, this one? That one's fake. Oh my God, yeah, they do look terrible. Ew.
Yeah, so Jacob imprints and then the wolves roll up to the house to kill the baby. And then he jumps in front and he's like, no. And then Edward's like, Jacob imprinted, it's against like the laws of the wolf world to kill the person that anyone has imprinted on.
So it was
so it protects the baby.
Cause. Okay, it wasn't.
So Bella's pretty angry with it and kind of doesn't she hit him in the books?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This comes in part 2 of the movie, but in the book she
punches him again. Damn. And what happens this time? Does she break her hand or?
No, because I think this is when she's a vampire. So what happens is that as she's giving birth, because she's almost dying, I think in the books, does he inject her with the vampire venom? And then she then turns into a vampire.
So he injects her into her heart to get it flowing quickly.
Her. Because
but also bites her too.
Yeah, because they want it to be as quick as possible.
Okay.
And I think they realised if he bites her before she delivers the child might die.
Okay.
So they're like, it has to be as soon as she's given birth, then you need to get as much venom in her body as possible, and then it's injected into the heart.
As if she's not been
around the body.
Knowing how painful the venom is, she's just been through childbirth apparently is painful enough as it is, but this is a special, more painful childbirth.
Was she bitten in the first film?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember, and then they had to suck the venom out.
Yeah, Edward does. So this time, he injects her and all of that. And then you also get like an internal shot of her. So from the outside, she's completely still. She actually looks very dead, but she's alive-ish. She actually dies for a second, I think.
Yeah.
But it's very emotional, Edward is trying to pump her chest, getting very upset. And inside she's screaming, lurching about, but on the outside she's just there.
Yeah. And one thing with the venom, I think they said it takes 2 days for it to go through the body. So the person's literally in agonizing, their veins are on fire for 2 straight days.
Oh my God. Okay, that's pretty nasty.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Bless her.
So then what happens with Breaking Dawn Part 2? Is this where they're okay. So she gets turned at the end of Breaking Dawn Part 1?
Yes.
Okay, and then what happens in Part 2? Does she decide, oh God, this was a terrible idea? Can I turn back?
She feels the best she's ever felt, obviously. So the movie starts with her opening her eyes, and obviously they're red.
Nice.
And then you get around the room and they try and show what it's like when you're a vampire, how much you see. Because when you're a vampire, you can see the tiniest details ever. You can see insects that humans can't see, that kind of thing. Wow, you can see details. So they try and do that kind of thing, which is quite fun. And then she sees Edward, has a little chat. They go for a hunt because in the books it's actually really frustrating because she doesn't feel that thirsty. Usually when you're a newborn, you're burning thirst. In the books it's more annoying than in the movies. He keeps reminding her of her thirst and then she's like, oh my God, I'm really thirsty. So they go on this hunt. They find some vegetarian
options
and go to hunt then. But on her hunt, when she's mid-hunt, she gets the smell of a human.
Oh shit.
So she runs off to the human. Edward comes up behind her, distracts her. And usually if you're a newborn vampire, there's no distracting you. There's no stopping you once you get the scent of a human, especially as a very, very newborn.
Yeah.
But she stops in her tracks and just holds her breath and goes, I need to get away from this. And just goes back and runs back to the house.
Just one quick thing that we did miss is that Bella's also special. Vampire powers don't work on her. So
why is this? Is it ever explained?
It's not really explained, but then it's further developed in Breaking Dawn, especially Part 2. So the twins. So you've got the brother who can fully make someone numb; they can't feel any sense, and his sister who can cause excruciating pain. Their powers don't work on Bella at all.
Yeah. It's all a mind thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that from New Moon. So then, what is Bella's special power when she becomes a vampire?
So they originally thought super self-control, because she could hold her breath and walk away from this hunt. But then throughout the movie, they kind of come across more vampires and more vampires with abilities that don't affect her. And then they meet someone who his ability is being able to tell what other people's abilities are. And so he's like, oh, Edward, why didn't you tell me your wife was a shield? And then he's like, well, I didn't know. And so essentially she's got a shield on her mind. And one of the, well, maybe we should get into why there are other vampires, but well, I'll say this now. One of the other vampires says, oh, can you spread it? And she was like, no, I have no idea how to start. And basically she could develop her power to extend to other people. So then if someone was trying to mind kill Edward, she can push out her shield and protect Edward too.
That's pretty nice. Cool. That's pretty nice. That's very Bella. She's just so nice and wholesome.
Yeah, she is so nice.
And I think another thing, like, which is in the books, is like when the child is born, and then after like Bella hits Jacob, Jacob goes through like a whole period of frustration, and I think Edward tells him to just go. Yeah. So what he does is, I think he goes to like another city. He says, take the car, just go anywhere from here. He then drives somewhere, and then he has this like weird scene with this girl where he's talking to her, and I think it's like he realizes that maybe he needs to just like take a break from the family. But I think that's when he then comes back and then imprints the child.
Oh yes, that was Jacob's chapter.
Yeah.
But he's moved on, has he? He's found someone else.
No. So what happened? He was kind of like distract himself because he's like the person he loved almost died, and now is what he despises. Because for some reason they always say that when they're around vampires, they smell like a smell of bleach.
Yeah.
So it's like now the person he loves is something that he reviles.
Yeah.
So then he kind of had like a small like breakdown. So then Edward was like, take the car, which I think was a Ferrari. And was like, just get out of here.
Classic, they love their cars.
And then he was like, he then went away. This whole period of like, he was just speaking to someone. And I think he then realized, actually, let me just go back. That this is where I am. The town is where he's actually supposed to be.
Right. Okay. That's good.
So she meets her baby as well. They're a bit scared. That's when she finds out that he imprinted on her. Yeah. Because he's like, oh, smell me before you smell the baby and see if, like, you don't bite me. And she's like, why do you care so much? She meets the baby, and then she's holding the baby, and he's like, okay, I think that's enough now. And she's like, why? And he's like, oh, God. It's quite a funny scene in the movie.
Okay. Why do you imprint her?
Yeah. And then the baby's called Renesmee, after Renee and Esme, the two mothers.
Aww.
And I think it's Renesmee Carly.
What, as her surname or as her full name?
Middle name.
Okay.
Charlie and Carlisle.
Oh, that's cute. I mean, that's quite a lot to put on paper.
Yeah, it is. Okay. But, yeah, so he then calls her Nessie, and then she screams at him, one, because he imprinted, and two, because he nicknamed her daughter after the Loch Ness Monster.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, Nessie the Loch Ness Monster. Lord, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, so kind of throughout the first bit of the movie, they're just concerned about how the baby's aging, because she just ages really quickly. She grows really quickly. They're like, is she just going to become old really quickly and die? Because they don't know, they've never heard of it. They're doing lots of research. Then they're like sort of hunting in the woods, and they come across an old family friend who sees them from a distance.
Yeah.
And then thinks that Renesmee is one of those immortal children that we were talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah, one of the vampire children. Oh, shit, did they tell the Volturi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then the next half is preparing for their inevitable fight with the Volturi, because Alice says they're coming when the snow sticks to the ground. Alice and Jasper run off and leave the family, basically.
Really?
We don't know why for a lot of the movie.
Oh, okay.
And then that's when they gather lots of other vampires to help them. And they say, we don't necessarily want you to fight. We just want you to witness that this child is a growing child and not an immortal child. And we just want to stop the Volturi and then explain to them.
Yeah. So and give them enough pause so they can then lay their case. Yeah. So it's not just they run in and then just massacre everybody.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Exactly.
And so they have a big show off with a standoff with the Volturi.
Yeah. And they also rope in the werewolves as well, because then the child's been imprinted, so they're also then part of the family. So then they then are a part of the group as well.
Yeah. Right. And do any other like mythical creatures come up other than vampires and werewolves?
No.
I was half expecting that you'd find out Bella's like a fairy or something, because this is exactly what happens in True Blood.
Yeah. Like you find that she's got like the main character's got fey blood.
Oh right, yeah.
If you like Twilight, True Blood's like an adult version of Twilight.
Really?
It's weirdly quite funny and weirdly quite like realistic in a weird way, like
especially like this Japanese food company develops like something they call True Blood, which means something that vampires can drink and not have to like drink people's actual blood. And then you get stuff like you've got someone who's a shapeshifter, a guy who's in their town who can like shapeshift into different animals.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've got like actual werewolves.
There's
within
loads
the
of different characters. And humans, if they ingest vampire blood, it's like a drug for them, so they get really high.
Fun.
And also they get a bit stronger, a bit faster as well. And also heals wounds as well. It also heals like someone like got like almost like fatal shot wound. They got like vampire blood and was then healed.
Oh yeah, that's what happens in the Vampire Diaries actually.
That's it. Common law, exactly.
It really is.
I would highly recommend
it a TV show or
TV show.
It's an HBO TV show.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very cool, and like there's actually a genre of southern vampire like stories, like literally in American Deep South, but vampires. It's actually a thing. Yeah, so cool, interesting subgenre. Okay, just the web type. So anything else about Breaking Dawn Part 2?
One thing that you do like pick up is that one of the leaders of the Venatori or Volturi?
Volturi. You have been saying Venatori.
Yeah.
Have I been saying it wrong?
So the Volturi, so there's three of them. There's one who's like fully violent, who really wanted to kill Bella from the offset. And there's also the main character that Michael Sheen plays. And then you've got the other one who's like, I couldn't be bothered with this.
The super blonde, like a super blonde one who's like...
Oh, Caius, he's just a psychopath.
Right, okay.
So like you then find out from him that he killed and the Volturi worked to kill off the actual werewolves. So you actually learn that the wolves that they see aren't werewolves and that they actually killed all of them. And you find out that he killed like one of the last werewolves in Antarctica.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there actually were werewolves, but they actually wiped them out.
So what the Jacob isn't actually a werewolf.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that they found out that they are actually shapeshifters and not actually wolves at all.
And the wolves are one of the main things that stop the Volturi when they meet in the field.
Because they haven't seen them at all.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, right.
Because what happened? Yeah, because when in the third film, is it New Moon? The third film?
Eclipse.
That's the second Eclipse. So in Eclipse, what happens is that they tell the wolves after defeating the army of vampires to then go away. So then when the Volturi agents then come, they then can't see that the werewolves exist. So that was also a very clever trump card they used in the last film.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? And then I'll move on to our final closing question. I definitely need to watch these two movies. They do sound quite enticing, despite the critics' review of Part 1 being 25%. That's so bad.
It is awful. I mean, it was the best cinema experience I've ever had. Like, hands down. Because I don't want to spoil it. Because
go for it.
So they do a fight scene because Alice comes back.
Mm.
And then she's like, let me show you that she's not real. And she, not an immortal child. And she brings another half human, half vampire as evidence to show that they stop aging at this time. Right. So everyone's like, oh, big relief. And that they're not crazy. They develop, and they have adult minds. And she comes back and she's like, no matter what I do, you're not going to change your mind, are you? And then it's crazy. And then they get Jasper and Alice in a chokehold. And then Carlisle's like, let them go! Charges at them.
Yeah.
And then literally Arrow beheads him and holds up his head.
Oh,
and
snap.
My God, like the cinema just exploded. Everyone, and I knew, like, people from my school who, like, didn't like Twilight, didn't really know about Twilight, went to see it as well because everyone was going to see it. So, like, people, like, I knew, I'd read the books, I was like, this doesn't happen. I was like hyperventilating. I was sobbing. I was like, oh my God. And then there's this 10-minute fight scene of people dying. Seth dies. I mean, all the bad characters die, so that's all very satisfying.
But not the Cullen family die?
Carlisle dies. I think Jasper dies. Honestly, it was so horrible
what happened
to watch.
Emmett? What about Emmett?
I think he was all right.
He's such a random character. Oh man, that's kind of like, they do this in these big book dash things, like Dumbledore dies, and everyone's like, no, Dumbledore. And I guess Carlisle is that version, but that's quite cool that was a surprise. I guess obviously it wasn't in the books, but perhaps it's like, for example, watching Game of Thrones TV shows after you've read the books kind of ruins all the brilliant surprises in a way. Like knowing what happens at the Red Wedding and stuff. So sometimes I do appreciate when they veer off track from the books,
It was amazing. It was traumatic, but it was, like, amazing. And, like, just the cinema was just in hysterics. And it was absolutely insane. And then she walks away and because Arrow dies. And he doesn't want to die. So she shows him that he'll die if they fight.
So the whole fight seems like a vision of what would happen if they chose to then fight instead of walking away. Yeah.
And then they meet her and then they're like, it's fine.
We'll let her go.
And then that was it. But my God, amazing.
Wow, okay. I mean...
I'm sad that you now know about it because that would have been...
Carlisle, no!
I'm going to watch it.
Okay, well, that brings me on to my final question. So, with Harry Potter, as you know, they're going to remake Harry Potter now into a TV show, with each series will be one book. Do you think if the same were to happen with Twilight, that would be a good idea?
I think probably usually I would have been like, no. But I don't think these current movies are sacred enough for me to go, no. Because I think they're great and I love them so much, but I think I would watch a TV show of it.
Yeah.
Because they could probably fix a lot of the things that they didn't do right.
Like the CGI baby, for example.
Like the CGI baby.
Or they'll just have better CGI. Baby.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that me and my brother were just talking about, like, I remember watching, like, the first Percy Jackson film. And then he convinced me to watch the Percy Jackson Disney TV show. And I was like, this is a lot better than the film.
Really? Wasn't it?
Okay. And then, like...
Because the films were good. I loved the films.
And then they were good. But I think the main issue is that you had people, like the actress who I think is in the... the main actress who plays Annabeth, I think she's in the... the Hotel TV show? The American TV show. I keep on forgetting what it's called. But she was, like, 5 years older than Percy Jackson.
Oh, really?
So she's in her, like... 2021 playing then someone who's a lot younger. So then when you then rewatch it, it's like
oh, right.
that awkwardness.
Yeah.
So then they actually got people of the ages. And I think my brother also, I remember my brother still is like a big Alex Rider fan. And he watched I watched the film with him. But then like Sky have done a TV series and the TV series is a lot better than the film because they actually have enough time to then go through the actual specific things, like I think that's
flesh out the lore a bit.
And I think because now we've seen like examples of where a TV show is better, then I think it would really work really well because they did leave a lot of stuff out.
Yeah. I think Twilight is quite unique in its way. The whole forbidden love genre. I know you got True Blood, which also has forbidden love in it.
And a vampire and a werewolf.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of parallels between Twilight and True Blood, actually. But True Blood's like what Twilight could have been if it was like 18 plus.
Right.
But I think, we can't deny how iconic Twilight is. I mean, our generation grew up with it, so we definitely know. I don't know about kids these days if they're super into Twilight.
Yeah.
It might be a hard sell for them, but I think we can all agree Twilight exists. I wouldn't say whether it's particularly fantastic or not, but I would give it a strong 6 out of 10. What would you give it out of 10?
I think I would give it I would say the films and the books, I'll just put them all together.
Yeah.
I would say 7.5 out of 10.
Oh, that's very generous.
I think the main thing I think is the way it gripped a whole age group for so long. And you did kind of see that
as well.
And you did kind of see that with Hunger Games, but didn't last as long.
No, it didn't.
Yeah, that's true.
There's got to be something good about it if people loved it so much. Do you know what I mean? And if you said to me, why do you like Twilight? I wouldn't necessarily be able to give you pointers, specific pointers as to why. Yep. But I think that's the same with anything. It's why do I like my friends? Yes, I can give you some examples as to why they're good people. But it's a vibe. It's a feeling rather than a pinpointing exactly
unless
why.
Unless you're friends with vampires or something.
Unless you're friends with vampires.
One of my favourite films is Heath Ledger's A Knight's Tale.
Yeah,
but I can never people are but why do you love it so much? I'm I don't know why. I just love the fact that the people but it's not historically accurate. You've got people with night ticks on their armour. You've got things people playing rock music in medieval fashion, but I'm I love it because of that.
Yeah.
It's unique. It's refreshing, I guess, because one thing about Hollywood movies is they keep following a lot of generic formulas. Well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. It's now the Twilight Hour of the Twilight series. We'll never hear of Twilight again. But maybe, who knows, they'll probably make a TV show out of it one day.
I hope so. We can talk about that when it comes out.
Oh, yeah, we'll have you back on. And I don't know, maybe we'll have you on for Hunger Games or something. It'd be lovely to have you back on again.
Well. Not as much as Twilight, obviously.
Team Edward, Team Jacob.
And then also the fact that people have found out that Morgan prefers Twilight to Harry Potter. There'll be a lot of people
that's
debating
wild.
that.
You're going to have millions of people around you.
Yeah, I'm going to get hate mail or something. Get bombed through the post. Oh, you can't say that. Well, Penny, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's been so fun.
Yeah.
I just love talking about Twilight. It's worth noting how this came about because I met you at Jeffrey's event. And I think you said to me, what's your favourite fantasy movie or something? And I said, does Twilight count? And then I'm not sure you asked me much else about it, but I went on a bit of a tangent, I think. And then you came up to me and was like, that was really interesting. You want to come on a podcast?
Well, I find it quite easy actually, because a lot of the time, when you want to talk about your favourite fantasy, science fiction or history, there's not the right time for it. You might be at a bar and you're with other people who haven't seen it, and it's it's too specific, too nerdy a subject to talk about in public. But it's so easy to get people on this show because when you love something, you're telling me I could spend 2 hours talking about my favourite thing. Yeah.
I could have gone longer.
Yeah, exactly. 2 hours is not enough, Jeffrey. It is not enough. Well, I'll reflect that feedback to Jeffrey. You. And to our lovely audience, again, you are amazing. We love your comments, especially the person who cropped my face out in a photo and has now changed their YouTube profile picture to my face. I need to find out who that is. Secret admirer. And if you really like our show, please click the notification button so you can find out when we bring out our next episode, which may be Hunger Games, or it may be Free Body Problem, or it may be
True Blood.
True Blood. Oh, yes. Oh, 100%.
I've actually just started reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. Have you heard of it?
No, is that another vampire thing?
It's a fantasy thing. It's a fairy thing. But I'm not that far in. I'm 50% in. And I don't really quite understand it yet. But they're not like they're not like fairies with fairy wings. Do you know what I mean? It's it's different.
True Blood, the fairies are also not. Actually, they kind of are. Anyway, show's over. And if you really like us, please subscribe to our page. Give us a follow on Instagram, the Two Maesters, and listen to someone pick up the mic stuff. Penny is also, if you want to plug yourself as well, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Twilight is not my usual thing that I talk about. I usually talk about sustainable fashion, upcycling, things like that. So if you want to know more about it, follow me on Threads for a Penny on Instagram.
Woohoo! You heard it here, folks. That's all for this evening. Bye-bye.
See you, folks.
Bye.
Bye.